Dear students, welcome to you again. In the chapter 3 also, we need to learn more about the alternation of generation in the living organism and how that some living organisms, they have one generation that sexually reproduce and the other they are reproduced asexually. Let's go down our lesson today. Alternation of generation. It is one of the types, as we said in the last time, one of the type of sexual and asexual reproduction for the living organism. As we said, it is a life cycle that includes the both generations. One of them reproduces sexually and the other or changes with it or alternates with it with another form, which is what? Sexual and asexual reproduction. So it carries the both benefits of sexual and asexual reproduction. We have some examples for alternation of generation, such as what? Such as something called plasmodium, and we have the full cycle of the plasmodium, and also fur plants. Fur plants such as what? Like adiantum, like voyeur, as we're going to study it, and also we have one of the most common examples such as bilharzia worm. Okay, it also reproduced by two ways, sexually and asexually. Okay, one of them inside the human and one of them outside the human in the snail in the water. Well, right now we need to study example for a plant that reproduces by alternation of generation and a living organism, which is animal, which reproduces by alternation of generation, which is plasmodium. Let's start with what? With the life cycle of the plasmodium. Well, the life cycle of plasmodium or malaria parasite, which infects the female Anopheles mosquito, and also it infects the human. Let's start it, and we have a lot of information. I hope that you enjoy with the information here. Well, number one, what does it mean, the malaria or the plasmodium? It is a sporozoan protozoa. I mean, it's a very tiny, consists of just one cell. This is a sporozoan protozoa that attacks human and female Anopheles mosquito. So we have here what? Two infected individuals. The female Anopheles mosquito, not female, just female Anopheles mosquito, and you're going to know why, and male and female of the human. Well, after that, the female Anopheles mosquito, when it bites, okay, when it stings the human skin to absorb a large amount of blood, the saliva of mosquito, okay, it contains the infective stage. The infective stage, which is called sporozoites. They are very minute spindle shape of cells. They are called sporozoites. So we need again the saliva of Anopheles mosquito. It contains the infective stage, which is called what? Sporozoites. Called what? Sporozoites. It's just a minute spindle shape of cells. The sporozoites directly move to what? To the liver of the human and spend a time period, we call it incubation time. Okay, this time of growing up of sporozoites to the reproduce asexually and give us something called schizogony. The schizogony after that makes two cycles, okay, with a large number of merozoites they are released. This is the first type, which is asexual reproduction. Again, let me to remind you, we said alternation of generation, we have two cycles, one of them sexually and the other one is what? Asexually. This is the asexual one, okay, which happens in what? In the liver of the human by releasing a large number of merozoites by the effect of schizogony. Well, after that, some merozoites, it can infect new liver cells, I mean the surrounding cells, okay, inside your liver. And other merozoites, they migrate and move inside your body to infect red blood cells. You infect what? Red blood cells. But what's gonna be happening by infecting red blood cells? Merozoites reproduce asexually. Again, we still inside asexual reproduction, okay? Remember that. The merozoites reproduce what? Asexually by schizogeny inside the red blood cells to form millions of merozoites that release every 2 days. That causes what? That causes the destruction of the red blood cells completely. Destruction of the red blood cells. Okay, this is the first type of the asexual reproduction of the sporozoites of the malaria parasite, and that causes appearance of malaria symptoms, which is sweating and fever or high temperature, and also what? Chilling or convulsion of the body. After that, some merozoites remain inside in the red blood cells, okay? Again, if you remember that, as we said, the sporozoites infect where the some surrounding of liver cells, and also they infect red blood cells. But some of the merozoites, okay, they remain inside red blood cells. Remain what? Inside red blood cells without any change into gametocyte. They don't change. But what they are doing with another female Anopheles mosquito, another one, okay, absorb the blood of infected person by sporozoites. The gametocytes reach to the stomach of the Anopheles mosquito, and they change into what? Male and female gametes. And this is what? This is here the sexual cycle. The asexual cycle happens inside the male human by infection of red blood cells and liver, while here it happens what? Yes, inside the mosquito itself, when the gametocyte reaches to its stomach and they change into male and female gametes. The gametes fuse to form zygote to end like any normal sexual reproduction to transform into something called oocytes, okay, and they are something like a name for zygote of the sporozoites, or something like what the gamete fusion of gametes between them, we call it oocyte, okay. And after that, finally, the oocyte, they are a movable stage. They can move and penetrate stomach wall and attach to the stomach wall to form what? From outside, and divides by meiosis to form oocysts. The oocysts, they are divides mitotically, okay, after sexual fertilization. After that, it followed by mitotic division, normally like any sexual reproduction, to form a large number of sporozoites. In the cycle, also it continues more and more time that move toward the salivary gland again, the salivary gland to be ready for human infection and so on. And this process, we have a name for this, which is called sporogony, or that the multiple or repetition of the infection by the malaria parasite. Picture, but before the picture, we have the give reason. The life cycle of Plasmodium or malaria includes two cases: alternation of generation. One, because it includes one generation that reproduces sexually by gametes in the stomach of female Anopheles mosquito, and it changes or replaces or alternates with hundreds and many generations that reproduce asexually inside us, okay, by schizogony in the human and by sporogony in the female mosquito. This is the ideal answer for the question one. And we have here the picture for the life cycle of Plasmodium or malaria parasite that causes the malaria parasite. And we have here the mosquito, or the Anopheles mosquito, when it absorbs amount of blood from the human, and the sporozoites transfers to the human liver and infect some of liver, the surrounding bloods or that infect red blood cells and also the liver cells. And on the other side, when they are released from the red blood cells, they are changed into the they are reproduced by schizogeny, and they are reproduced sexually in the stomach of the Anopheles mosquito. And those are the two different generations. One of them sexually, and the other is what? Asexually. After that, we have alternation of generation in the plant, or differently the fern plant. Actually, we have a different type of the fern plant. Our example we have what? Polypodium plant. Okay, it's a type of plant, we call it like ornamental plant in nurseries. Well, just its English name, okay? And we have also adiantum, which grows in the shaded streams and well edges, and it has an Arabic name very clear for you, but I need you just to search for it, adiantum, okay? Well, also we have voyeur. So we have polypodium and adiantum and voyeur. Those are three different examples for ferns, or plants that reproduce by alternation of generation by two cycles, one of them sexually and the other alternates with the asexual reproduction. Let's discuss it. Number one, the life cycle of polypodium. Well, the life cycle starts by one of the phases, which is called saprophyte. It's a dominant stage. Dominant stages mean what? It's somatic cells, or it just a part of the plant, okay? Which is called what? Saprophyte. That carries a group of sori. Sori mean here it's a singular form, which is sorus. The plural, which is sori, on the lower surface of the leaves. So we have a leaves, and the its lower surface, it contains a group of sorus or sori. Well, after that, the sori contain sporangia, which contain large number of spores. Contains what? Large number of spores. Each one of them is 2n, or it carries the full of genetic materials. When the spores divide by meiosis, okay, it forms haploid spores. I mean, it carries half of genetic materials, n. And after that, the haploid spores are carried by wind to any place, okay? And when they are settled on a wet soil, on something that amount of dampness or less of temperature, they start to germinate. And what after that germination, they are forming what? They form several cells that develop to flat heart-shaped like structure, okay? Something like, it looks like as a heart, which is called gametophyte. And this gametophyte, it contains half of genetic material, which is haploid N, that grows over the soil. And after that, the lower surface of the gametophyte produces rhizoids. The rhizoids mean just, it looks like roots. It looks like a roots, but they aren't roots, okay? To absorb large amount of water and salts and minerals from the soil. On the anterior part of the lower surface gametophyte, there is genital organs are produced. The male organ, we call it antheridium. Again, the male organ, we call it what? Antheridium. While the female organ, we call it what? Archegonium. So we have here two organs, male and female. The male call it antheridium, and the female call it what? Archegonium. And the plural here, antheridia, and in the female also archegonia. Well, on maturation of antheridia and archegonia, I mean maturation, they are well prepared for mating or for sexual reproduction. The male gametes ciliate the sperms that liberate and swim over soil water, reaching for what? They need to reach what? To the female gamete. Excellent. They reaching to mature archegonia and fertilize the eggs by forming the zygote. And also after formation of zygote, which is diploid or carry the full genetic materials, zygote grows and differentiates into a young saprophyte depending on what? On the gametophyte till forming root, stem and leaves and the whole parts of the plant and so on. After that, the gametophyte degenerates, I mean it disappeared, okay, it's disappeared, while the saprophyte grows to repeat the life cycle of the polypodium and so on. This is a life cycle of polypodium. Well, as we said, I need you just to focus on some points here. The male genital organ, which is called antheridium, and the plural, which is antheridia, and the female one, which is called archegonia. And the antheridium, they are some of the ciliated sperms. They are swimming soil in water, reaching to the archegonia, and after fertilization, they form zygote, which carries the full of genetic material, and after that, it forms new individuals of complete root, stem, and leaves, and so on. This is a life cycle of polypodium. So, right now we studied two life cycles, okay, of alternation of generation. One of them for the plant right now, which is polypodium, and the last one, which was the plasmodium or malaria parasite. Well, actually, we have some information about the alternation of generation. I need you to compare between the sexual and asexual reproduction, because it's very important to compare between them or to differentiate between them after studying all those types of like scleriform, sexual, and lateral conjugation in Spirogyra, and after that the alternation of generation. Well, to recollect your information, what we have here a comparison between points of comparison between sexual and asexual reproduction. It's just a rapid information to remind you what did we see in the last lessons, okay? Well, number one, we need the definition for each of them. And number two, we need what? The number of individuals they are needed for each one of them. Here, sexual, there need what? Yes, two individuals, male and female. While in asexual, you just need one individual. And after that also, the type of division in the sexual, it is necessary for it meiotic division or meiosis. While asexual is just one, which is what? Mitotic division. And also the time, sexual reproduction, it takes much more time, or as we said before, it needs what? It needs a high biological cost. And I think we discussed it before. While asexual reproduction, it just needs a little time. Finally, the energy, sexual reproduction, it needs high energy or high biological cost, while asexual, it doesn't all of that. Finally, it's common in what? Sexual reproduction and asexual reproduction. I mean, the sexual reproduction is common in the higher vertebrates, okay? Production of new individuals, which one of them produces much more progeny or much more offsprings, okay? The individuals produced and also the variation that happens in sexual, because we need what? We need the crossing over phenomenon takes place in the sexual, while in the asexual reproduction, there is no any variation. Because what? Because there is no crossing over phenomenon, okay? And finally, the crossing over, does it happen here or not? And on the other side of that sexual reproduction. Reproduction in flowering plants. In the last time, we studied what? We studied the reproduction by alternation of generation, scleriform conjugation, and lateral conjugation in Spirogyra. Right now, we're going to study the reproduction in the plants, and it's gonna be followed by reproduction in the human. Well, the flowering plants, what they are mean flowering plants? They are large group of plants. They are definitely the form seed. Okay, any plant that form seeds, we call it what? Flowering plants. But their seeds, the seeds that developed or formed inside a fruit envelope. Again, they are large group of seed plants. The seed, they are developed and formed inside envelope we call it fruit envelope or pericarp. So they are called angiosperms. Angio here mean what? Covered. It mean what? Covered. And the sperms it mean seeds. So simply they are, we can translate it to English that we can say it angiosperms. It mean what? Plants which their seeds are developed and formed inside cover. This cover is called pericarp. That is all, okay? And the group of this plant, we call it angiosperms. We have two great types, the angiosperm and the other type which is gymnosperm. And right now we're going to study angiosperms. We didn't study gymnosperms, okay? Well, the flower, it is a short stem. Okay, let me to remind you by the flower. Well, do you know that sometimes people that get confused between the meaning of flower and any other organ inside the plant? Well, for example, if you have a cactus plant and it's covered with a spine, okay, have you asked yourself before where the leaves of the cactus plant? Actually, the leaves of the cactus plant itself, it is the spine, but the spines are modified absolutely into what? They modified into spine to perform a specific function. I need you just to know the meaning of modified or modification. In most of living organisms, we have some organs, they are modified, they are changed, transformed into another type. For what? To do another function. Get the difference? Like here, the short stem, or we have a part of the stem which is what? Which compress together, okay? And the leaves on this stem, it changes or modified to form what? To form the flower. So the flower, it starts or it begins the origin of the flower as a what? As a short stem. The leaves that covered, surrounded by this short stem, modified or changes absolutely into what? Into a flower to form the floral parts of the flower, as we're going to study the different floral parts of the flower, okay? And what is the function, the specific function or the definite function that will do it? It's specialized for reproduction. Easy? Okay. Types of flowers according to their number and position. It's just an extra information for you to study the types of flower and to be more clear for you. Well, number one, solitary, it means what? It's just a one flower. It's just what? A one flower. It's found at the top of the plant, or apical flower. Apical means at the top, at the end of the stem. So it's found at what? At the top of the stem, and it causes what? Stopping the growth of the stem. Okay, it doesn't grow anymore. This is the apical flower, like what? Like tulip plant. And also we have the axial. The axial flower, like petunia plant. Well, on the other hand, if you observed in the street or in the garden a group of flowers, they are connected together, okay? They are gathering together, okay? We call it what? Inflorescence. We call it what? Inflorescence. They are what? A group of flowers on the same floral axil. I mean, in the same parts of the stem of the plant. They are called inflorescence. That is all. Well, after that, like what? Like bean plant, like mather, and so on. We have different types. Well, the floral parts and the flower and its parts. Well, the flower, as we said, it emerges from the axil leaf, and this leaf is called bracts. If you go in to observe a flower by your eyes in the garden, you will see a leaf, okay? This leaf that carries, we consider it that it looks like carrying the flower. Or by other way, if you're going to observe the flower, and the flower, it locates between the stem and the leaves, okay? These leaves, okay, which below the flower, we call it bract. That is all, okay? And this leaf varies in shape and color from one plant to another, okay? It may be a large, it may be small, it may be cylindrical, and so on. And also the flower may be what? Stalked. What's in by stalked? It has a large part, and after that you find the leaflet. Or they are sessile. Sessile, it means directly they are on the stem. They are carried on a pedicle, or they are sessile. Sessile means they are set directly on the stem. Well, what is the structure of a typical flower? And the expression of the meaning here of a typical flower here, it doesn't mean that we have some flowers they aren't typical, but I mean typical flower in our study, it means what? It means it contains every flower part, okay? And did you mean that we have some flowers they carry 3 or 2 of the flower parts? Yes, as we're going to study. So typical flower, the flower carries all the flower parts, okay? Everything, like petunia plant, like onion, like bean, like apple, and so on. And we have here a longitudinal section in the flower. And longitudinal section is mean what? Simply we're going to look inside the flower, okay, by side view. We're going to study it. In a flower, it consists of main 4 parts, which is what we have here: the sepals, petals, okay, and also we have the male reproductive organ and female reproductive organ, as we're going to study in the next time. Well, after that, the typical flower consists of, as we said, what? 4 whorls. Whorls mean what? Well, do you know the whole whorl or the whole circle, a group of leaves, we call it one whorl. The typical flower consists of 4 circles or 4 whorls of the leaves or leaflets, whatever, okay, that alternate with each other. Let's start. The first one, which is called calyx, the first floral part, which is called calyx. And calyx is the outer whorl. It's what? The outer whorl. It consists of green leaves. Each one of them is called sepals. Each one of them called what? Sepals. And its main function just to protect the floral parts, okay, and or the inner part, like what? Like the ovum and also the filaments and anther. I mean the reproductive organs, okay, and especially before blooming. Before blooming is mean what? Before the flower becomes open, okay. We have the opening flower, we call it, after blooming, and if it closed, it is still it doesn't mature yet, okay. So the function of calyx, it's outer whorl, and its main function to protect the inner parts of the flower or their productive organ from the against rain or unfavorable conditions, wind, drought, and so on. After that, the second whorl, which is called corolla. So the first one is what, as we said, calyx consists of sepals, each one of them called sepals. Number 2, they are green leaves, while corolla, the second whorl, and it also consists of 1 or more row of petals, each one of them called petals. They are colored and scented. Why they are colored and scented? Definitely to attract the insects to accomplish the pollination process. I mean the flower needs, any flower needs the distribution or propagation of the pollen grains, and that happens by what? By insects, and sometimes by wind, and sometimes by rain. But in most of the plants that reproduce by insects, the corolla, they should be what? Scented. I mean they have a nice smell and also colored to attract the insect. At the end of our episode, I hope you learned how some living organisms, they can reproduce sexually and asexually in the form of alternation of generations. See you the next time. Goodbye.